And thank you for joining us today for the National Crime Victims' Rights Week Victims Memorial. This is a real important event for all our victims. And it isn't just the actual victim, but the victims' families. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Bob Sampayan. I'm the mayor of the city of Vallejo. And as I look into the audience here, I see faces that I recognize that work in the field of helping our victims. But I see folks that are here that represent families of victims. Patty and I, and Rita. We go back a ways as people that I've dealt with in terms of their sorrow and their loss. Denise from the DA's office. She and I, back in my days of law enforcement, spent a lot of time together with our victims, talking with our victims. And the folks that are involved in helping our victims are equally as important. I look at where we have gone from back in my early days of law enforcement in the very early 70s, where there was absolutely nothing done for our victims, to where we are today, where our victims' families are equally as important because they are the survivors. That being said, again, I wish to welcome you, and I've authored a National Crime Victims' Rights Week proclamation that I'd like to read. I'm going to present it to the county. Whereas National Crime Victims' Rights Week is recognized across the country on April 8th through April 14th every year, and whereas today we stand together with unity, strength, and justice by supporting victims of crimes in Vallejo, and whereas under the Victims' Rights Act of October 2004, which states in part that victims' rights are be enforced, that there be compliance with victims' rights laws, and whereas under federal law, victims have the right to be protected from the accused, notified if the accused is paroled, released, or escaped from custody, and whereas victims have the right to be heard in proceedings involving release, plea, sentencing of any parole proceedings, and whereas victims have the right to full and timely restitution, as well as proceeding fees from unreasonable delays, and whereas victims be treated with fairness and respect for their dignity and privacy. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, Bob Sampayan, Mayor of the City of Vallejo, and the Vallejo City Council recognizes and supports Victims' Rights Week, the week of April 8th through the 14th as National Crime Victims Week. Signed by me, Bob Sampayan, Mayor of the City of Vallejo, and the Vallejo City Council. So again, I wish to welcome you. I am very, very saddened to see victims' families. With that, I would like to ask a representative from the District Attorney's Office to please come up and offer their opening remarks. That's Suzanne.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out today to honor victims of crime and their family members, and also all of you who are professionals who are, your whole job is to serve our victims of crime. I've been a prosecutor for, I like to say this all the time now, and I'm going to reach my 30-year mark in 30 years. And our California state legislator thought it was fit to actually make a part of the California Constitution victims' rights bill. But I will tell you, as a career prosecutor, that in my entire work as a DA, I've always had victims at heart and in my mind as I'm prosecuting cases. And there are so many of us here today from the District Attorney's Office, and I know you feel the same way as I do, that, you know, we are in it to make sure that victims are ushered through the process. You know, I can't stand here to say I know exactly, you know, how you feel, but I do empathize with those who have been thrust into the system, you know, through no fault of their own. And just rest assured that we are there for you. As I look at the theme for this year for the National Crime Victims Week, what I take out of that, expanding the circle, when I think about the symbol of the circle and what that means, to me it means inclusivity. It means a community coming together to serve people. And we need to have services and resources so when someone is victimized, that there is somebody there for them who, number one, cares and will provide them the necessary service to get through the criminal justice system and hopefully, you know, get back to as best a normal life as they possibly can. So let's continue to come together. I'm very proud of our Family Justice Center, Solano County Family Justice Center, headed by Angel Aguilar, who is here in the brown hat, standing. What he has done for the Solano community has been remarkable. He has brought in organizations whose number one goal is to serve our victims. And he's brought that place up and running, and it's doing a fantastic job, and we're very proud of him, Lori, and the other folks at the Family Justice Center. We have advocates who, victim witness advocates. I see a couple today, Shamar Lewis and Jeff Vallejo, who, I tell you, these are folks, and Mindy, I see you as well, Mindy Ornelas, who have a heart. I think that when we're interviewing people to come into our office, one of the things that I look for is to make sure that people have hearts. And, you know, I think that by doing that, it shows not only people within our office, but the community that we pretty much have your back. So my heart actually is very heavy this week, you know, in recognition of victims and survivors that are left behind. And I want all of us to carry on to the best of our ability to make Solano County a safer place and to continue to provide services and help for those who need. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon, and thank you, Mayor. My name is Josette Lacey. I'm District Representative for Supervisor Erin Hannigan. Unfortunately, she's unable to be here today, so you have me. She is at another meeting. Supervisor Hannigan represents District 1, which is a greater part of Vallejo. The theme this year, expand the circle, reach all victims. It's very important to Supervisor Hannigan. You know, this event began in Fairfield, and when she heard that there wasn't an event in Vallejo to take place, she was very passionate about helping to coordinate to get that here, so it is very important to her. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us and the communities across the United States this week to raise awareness to victim crimes and services. Know that this week happens nationally, so these kind of events are taking place all throughout the nation, and so that is very important. Victims of Crime Week is important to me on a personal level. I have very good friends, I have family members that have been touched by crimes, and I really thank all of you for being here on behalf of Supervisor Erin Hannigan's office. Thank you. And now I'd like to invite up Pastor Vic Jensen.
know, it was 1 year ago that that I was here at this event, and many of you I see for the first time since then. And so it's good to be here. And it's good to remember too that a year ago, if you can recall that day, it was raining. Prayers have been answered already, and we have sunshine today. But a year ago, there was very much a feeling of despair, a feeling of not knowing where we were, and not unsureness about the direction in which we were headed. You remember a year ago? It was a very dark period. We were questioning the direction as a community and as a society as to what was going to be happening. Things did not look very bright for victims of violence. We were in spirit. In the time since then, in that year, it appeared that the darkness has gotten more dark. We don't need reminders, do we, that crime and the victims of crime, we only need to look at the news to see the seeding epidemic that's gone about. That is the darkness that is there. My task, our task today, is to bring light into that darkness. I noticed that on the program it says words of encouragement. And indeed I do feel encouraged by the progress that's been made, the progress that's alluded to. And it's very definitely the circle is expanding. I want to bring, before I say our opening prayer, I want to bring to your attention two quotes. One is from the Hindu tradition by Swami Vivekananda. He said, "Never are we nearer the light than when the darkness is deepest." Think about it. Never are we nearer the light than when the darkness is deepest. In your own experience, in your personal experience of violence and of crimes committed and victimization, we all have that. It's been alluded to in our families, but personally we're hearing today from people who have been victimized by crimes committed against them. You know that at those moments when things appear to be darkest, that is a turning point. That at those times that we're most open to light. Is that not the truth? Our hearts are open and we become aware of our connection with others. And there's another quote that has to do exactly with that from the Christian tradition of a person you may have heard of by the name of Martin Luther King, who said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." Now there are those who may disagree with that, but when you spoke of the heart, you're looking for people with heart. You only need to look around and know that each person here is open to that truth. And so it is in that awareness that I want us to join together in a prayer for light into this darkness, into the light into this apparent darkness. Because although it may seem deep, think about what has happened during the past year in the awareness of the community, the need for strengthening our enforcement, for strengthening the police, and at the same time we're strengthening those services to the community in support of the victim. And so I'll ask you now to join with me in this prayer. So if you will close your eyes now, we will prepare ourselves for opening to the guidance that comes from the light within each one of us. On behalf of all of us, for each of us, for the pastors, the ministers, the imams, the gurus, or the spiritual leaders everywhere, we are speaking this truth, that we are the spiritual beings. We are open and receptive to the guidance of the Creator of us all. That spirit of light that is within us. Our prayer is for peace, for justice, and for freedom for all people, everywhere. For we know that the truth of us is that we are individuals, and we are also a part of the great collective. We are a community. We are connected, each one to one another. And so the words that are spoken today, prayers that are prayed today, not only for ourselves, we're open to that light which comes into the darkness. Open to that light. Peace, justice, we give thanks for answered prayer. Every pray all of this in the name and through the Spirit of the Creator of us all. Amen. If you've not done so already, as we listen to the words of those who follow me speaking, and share these same words of opening our hearts, as a token of this, we have a candle here. And if you have not lit it already, underneath it you'll find a magic switch which turns it on. And if you'll turn that on now, we'll do that as we continue with this vision. Thank you. And now I suppose it falls to me to introduce you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Patty Navalta Pavletti. I'm with the Robbie Pavletti Foundation, and my son, Robbie, was shot and killed here in Vallejo on September 21st, 2014. And he was very much a product of this city. He was born in Cedar Solano. He went to Dan Mini Elementary School, Solano Middle School, and he graduated from Vallejo High School. And he was 23 years old at the time that he was shot and killed. And he was just on the verge of starting a career. You know, he had laid out his suit on his bed because he was getting ready for a job interview that week. But it was the suit that he was buried in. And I think, you know, I think about the three men who took his life, and I always think, you know, if they had just stopped to think that they are taking someone's son away, someone's grandson away, someone's brother away, would they have done that? And I can only think that these three men come from childhoods of trauma, and they were suffering their own pain. And as victims, you know, it's very easy to be angry and want revenge and have hate in our hearts. It's much harder to seek forgiveness and compassion and understand that pain leads to pain. And when I look at the theme, I didn't know there was a theme, but expanding the circle, when I think of circles, I think of the ripple effect that these crimes commit, both good and bad. You know, when someone perpetrates a crime, they don't just take that life and alter the lives of that victim's family. They alter their own family's lives. They hurt their own parents. They hurt their own life. Their own lives are destroyed. And these 4 young men now are waiting for a trial. It will be 4 years since Robbie was killed, and we still have not had the trial, and that's going to happen hopefully next month. I wanted to share with you a little story since the pastor brought up Martin Luther King. After Robbie was shot and killed, I did not return to Vallejo for more than 2 years, and this has been my home for more than 3 decades. Because when that happens to you, you feel such a loss of community. You don't trust anyone, you're afraid, you don't want to come out of your bubble. And I stayed home, and I only went out to visit him at his grave. But we have to reclaim that as survivors. We have to figure out what can we do in this community to make it better, so that there are fewer mothers like me, and there are fewer children like my son, Bobby. And that's what I did, and that's why I created the foundation. And it was a surprising honor that I was invited by Bernice King, the youngest daughter of Martin Luther King, to speak at the 50th anniversary of his assassination in Atlanta at the King Center. I just returned from there. And when she spoke of her father, you know, it's so surreal to hear this woman say, my dad, and you think about it, she's talking about Martin Luther King. And she says that she remembers when her father was getting death threats, and he went out and he bought a gun. But then he told himself, I can't go out there and preach nonviolence and have a gun in my home. So he got rid of it. And it was the first time, she said, that she was going to actually hold a gun because she was fearful of them. It took her father away. But we gave her a handgun, and she put it into a furnace to be melted and made into a shovel so we could plant trees in Atlanta. And at that moment, what I thought is, you know, her father is this figure in civil rights. My son is a product of Vallejo, but we were the same. We were losing a loved one from gun violence, and she's still suffering the ripple effect of that. And I will forever suffer the ripple effect of my son going away. So it doesn't matter where you live or where you come from or your economic status. Pain is pain and loss is loss. And I think we as a community need to figure out how are we going to come together and break that pattern. And I think the only way is through compassion. We're left behind to grieve, but we're also left behind to follow a purpose. And I'm doing that for my son. So I thank you for coming here today and listening to our stories. I think it's really important for all of us to share our stories because we're not just statistics. You know, there's a lot of us that are suffering these losses, and we need to share our stories as often as possible. So thank you for listening to mine. And now there will be Rita.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here, and thank you for inviting me. I too lost a son to gun violence. I'm the only survivor here. My son has been gone for 25 years this coming June, which is hard for me to believe. I'll show you a picture of him. My son Chad went to a grocery store in Fairfield one night. He and his two friends had decided to rent a movie at Blockbuster Video. That's when we still had Blockbuster. And then they went into an Albertsons grocery store. And my son's friend was accosted by two men because he was very tall, 6'7". And they said, just because you're big, you ain't, I won't say the word. But they tried to start something with him because he was tall. Little bit of back and forth went between those two, and then my son and the other friend came in, didn't even know what had happened. And as they got up to the checkout stand, these two men turned and said, we like to pick up other people's kids, come on outside. And the three boys went out the opposite door to avoid trouble, and they got outside, and these men came up behind him and hit the tall friend over the head with a 40-ounce beer bottle. Why? Who knows? So they got in a tussle, and the boys told them, you know, we're going to go our way, you go your way, and they left and went back across the street to their apartment. Unbeknownst to them, these two men were in a car in the parking lot, driving with the lights out and brandishing a gun. Was there a reason to shoot anybody after that altercation that they started? I don't think so. My son and his friends were safely in the apartment, and they realized they had dropped the video that they had rented and that their friend's name and address was on it. And so my son said, we can't leave it out there, they might find Kevin. So the boys left the apartment 10 minutes after the altercation, and as they walked across the street, these two men drove by and did a drive-by shooting. And my son was hit 7 times, and he died instantly. His friend, who was on his way to a professional football career, had half of his foot shot off. So that ended that for him, as well as my son's life. I wear this necklace, which was made by my son's 5th grade teacher. She didn't make it for me, but when I saw it on a table at an art show, she said, come look at this. This has got to be for you. And it says, time altered forevermore. When we lose our loved one to violence, time is forever altered. We lose time in our lives, precious time with our child forever. We spend our new time with horrendous things like murder trials, parole hearings, therapy, just trying to get back our former life. And there's a point when we accept the fact that our former life is not coming back. This is our new normal. Time is forever altered with the realization that we'll never have those moments with our child again. It is forever altered when we realize that of all the joy we've lost, watching them graduate, watching them pursue a career, sharing in their accomplishments every day, watching them get married, have children, watching them just live their lives and have joy. We realize the hugs, the kisses, and the I love yous are gone forever. And it is such an ache in our heart. Their surviving siblings who will never have a brother or a sister in their lives again and will never experience the support of their sibling. Their lives are forever altered, and that, as mothers, is a heartache for us, a double heartache. Not only have we lost our child, but their siblings have lost their mother, because on that day we became someone different. So I want to talk about the group that I facilitate, along with Teresa Cordamach, who is Matt Garcia's mother in Fairfield. And I want to thank the Family Justice Center for allowing us to have a safe place to meet. We meet once a month, the second Tuesday evening of every month. I have flyers on the table if you need them. People have to process this grief, and the grieving process is one of vulnerability and a lot of pain and very, very great sadness. It is common for the survivor who is already feeling unsafe to avoid this process because it's so painful. Police investigations, media intervention, offender presence at trials, they overshadow our necessary grieving process. And our unprocessed grief can often manifest itself in physical illness, stress, depression. Victims who have lost a loved one to violent crime, we feel isolated. After a time, people who have not had that experience, including our own family and our friends, can pull away from us because they want the old person back. They want their old Rita or their old Patty back, the one that was there before we lost our sons. They want us to get over it because it's uncomfortable for them. They don't understand that we will grieve for the rest of our lives. It may not be as intense, but it is a lifelong process. It's like losing your leg. 40 years later, your leg is still gone. Only this is our child. I'd rather lose both arms than both legs. One of the most important aspects of helping a victim through their journey is the opportunity to meet other people who have had this experience. Our Solano Homicide Survivors Support Group, 2 mothers, and Dr. George Paz from Kaiser, he's a psychiatrist. We had one mother who started the group, and she passed away in November. We miss her dearly because she was an attorney and she had a lot of good advice. She also lost her son to gun violence 28 years ago. Her name was Valerie Dodini. It is a safe place for us to come with other survivors to cry and to scream and to swear. Sometimes there's a lot of swearing. To do whatever we need, to say whatever we need to say. And what happens at our meetings stays at our meetings. We have survivors who are in different stages of their process. Some of them, it's just happened. They haven't gone through trial yet, as Patty is getting ready to. We have survivors like myself who has gone through trial, through 3 parole hearings, through having the murder of my son released last July. We all have different things that we support each other. A parent or another family can work through the trauma of losing their child, their loved one, in this place, and in time reach an acceptable place where they're healed in some way. But there is one thing they cannot resolve, and that is the part of their heart that aches continually, because it is saying, I miss you with every beat of my own heart. Our support group is an important outreach for survivors. It is something that has helped me tremendously to facilitate it, and it is something that I know helps other people that come to the support group. In fact, they say that that is the only place where they can express their feelings. Like I said, if you want more information on our support group, there are flyers on the table, and if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer your questions. No? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patty and Rita, for those words, especially the words regarding the ripple effect and how we're all involved in that. And I didn't know you had that close relationship with Dr. Martin Luther King, but the words that he spoke were, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And he was speaking of that ripple effect and that circle that we're all involved in. Now, we've heard many words and prayers, and we each have in our own hearts, our own words, our own expression of grief or of hope, or our hope of inspiration and of strength. And so we'll take a moment now in silence to give a time for you personally to take the words that have been spoken in and the prayers that have been spoken inside and in your own words to express your support and your part in this community of support for one another. And so we'll do this now in the silence now, a silent prayer for peace, justice, and freedom. We have faith that the words and the spirit of our prayers are heard. This prayer for victims of crime everywhere. Great Spirit, Creator of us all, make me an instrument of thy peace. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. As I was thinking of what I wanted to say in closing, there were two words that the pastor said that really struck home for me. Peace and justice. I want us to all to remember the victims. Those victims that we will never forget. There are many, many that go through my mind in my career as a law enforcement officer, in my time as involved in politics, in meeting victims, families, the survivors, that we always keep them close to our hearts. I want to thank the Family Justice Center for what you do. It is huge to me. That was not around in the early 70s when I first started in law enforcement. Victims' families were left to their own to grieve. But you folks have made it, I can't say easier, but what you have done is you've opened a venue for people to come and share in their grief. I want to also thank our district attorney's office. You folks have to be out there prosecuting this. It's hard. And I have to say, I got personally involved, as Denise will attest to. I got very personally involved in many of my cases, and it is a struggle. Lastly, I want to thank Patty and Rita for sharing their courage. Being courageous women and saying, this is what has happened to me. I'm sorry that, I know it's not very mayoral-like, but this is a struggle for me. And lastly, I ask that we never forget. We never, ever forget. Thank you for being here this afternoon, and that is the end of our service. Thank you very much.
Thank you, man. Let's sit down sometime. I would love to. Okay. I'll ask you. Please do. All right. Good to see you. All right. Tomorrow. I appreciate it. It is.
Yes.